guys, how's it going? Welcome to our weekly review video where I take all of last week's videos and answer some of the most commonly asked questions. This is the third one we have filmed and I've really enjoyed it because it gives me an opportunity to first off answer your questions and then second to address things that I have forgotten to say in videos, which is usually a lot of things. I don't know how I forget to say so many things, and I think that's where a lot of your questions come from. So anyway, hope you guys have been enjoying them. There are a couple of things I wanted to talk about real quick before I get into the question part. The first thing is YouTube burnout. And it's a thing. It's a thing that I think a lot of content creators who try to stick to kind of a tight upload schedule deal with. Like somebody who is really influential to what Aaron and I do is Casey Neistat. He did a daily vlog for an entire year, but his content was incredible. The quality was amazing. The way he shot his videos was amazing, but he just burned out because you just can't sustain that kind of schedule. Also recently, the Dolan twins, who are massive on the YouTube platform, they burned out and they were just keeping to a weekly video schedule, which, you know, it wasn't as often as like Casey or even we're putting up content, but when you're putting out videos, it's a different type of, it's a different realm because you're opening yourself up to so much more criticism. And I think it depends on what kind of content you're putting out, of course. Like gardening content, pretty benign. You know, gardeners as a whole are a really lovely bunch of people, and we deal with like so little negativity. It's kind of amazing. People comment about it all the time saying like, I can't believe how positive your comment section is. So you guys are awesome and we thank you so much for that. But I did want to address the whole topic because I see comments like, you know, I hope you guys are taking time for yourselves. I don't want you to burn out. Just stuff along that line, and I'm right there with you, and we are trying really hard to guard against that. So one of the things that we've had to do is try to get help in whatever area we can, especially after Benjamin was born, because before, you know, Aaron and I, we were, you know, doing our thing. We had a lot more time to dedicate to what we're doing, but once we had Benjamin, we want to try to spend the maximum amount of time we can with him. So now, you know, our priorities have shifted, and that's life, like trying to balance constantly, and things are always changing, so you're always having to change up what you're doing. So we try to get help where we can. Like Aaron recently got help with editing. His name is Ken and he's doing a fantastic job. We're really happy. In fact, we've noticed a lot of comments about the editing in particular and how amazing it is. So we have Ken to thank a lot for that. And Aaron still films 100% of what we're doing. Like he's sitting right in front of me right now, basically here to make sure I'm not saying anything dumb and to make sure that the camera stays right. Like every time I try to film something by myself, it's like a slight disaster, and he's always trying to like fix what I've done wrong. So anyway, it's just kind of helped lighten his load a little bit so that we can post a lot of content. And then on my end, I've recently got some help outside with some of the more maintenance type things. Like I've talked to you guys about how watering is such a time suck, and I enjoy watering. I don't enjoy watering for 3 hours every single day though, because that takes away so much time from either what we could be doing to, you know, do more projects or time I could be spending with Benjamin. So those are really easy things to hand off to somebody else. So the guy I am getting help from, his name is Chris. He actually has experience in the plant realm. He's worked at a growing facility before. So it's been an amazing, like this is just recent. So it's been so amazing for me to not have to worry so much about everything out here. And I do try to spend as much time as I can out here. And I do, like I'm still doing all of the planting. I do a lot of maintenance myself as well. And up to this point, like in videos, when you see me planting or mulching or whatever, it's me doing it. There's nobody behind the scenes that we like have them come in and help me and then we cut it out. That's never happened. So if you see me getting help like from Aaron, that's like the only help I've been getting in videos. So it's really nice. Like this week we're getting ready to plant 3,000 bulbs. So you'll probably see Chris in the background helping me out with that. So I just wanted to sit down and talk about that with you guys and just keep that transparency, because there is no way that we could do what we're doing and hold it all together. I don't think anybody can. And I don't want any of you guys who are coming and watching our videos to think like, I don't want you to feel like you're not keeping up somehow. Like how come I can't keep my garden looking, you know, together and keep my house clean and all that stuff? The answer is that I can't, most people can't, and you shouldn't. I don't think it's a healthy thing. So anyway, just wanted to talk about that really quick. The second thing, we have a bunch of flower shows we're going to be attending at the first part of this next year. So I just wanted to run through those really quickly, and I will mention them again as the dates get closer. And I don't know all the dates and times of these yet. So be watching our website. It's gardenanswer.com/events. I have my notes in front of me. I had to make sure I said that right. So make sure that you are checking that. If you're in the area, for any of these, we would love for you guys to come so we could meet you. First one is in Cleveland. It's called the Great Big Home and Garden Show. That one I don't know dates for yet. The next one is the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival in Seattle, Washington, which we went to last year and had a great time. I will actually be speaking at this one on February the 28th and March the 1st, and we will be doing a meet and greet. The next one is the Boston Flower and Garden Show. That one's March 14th and 15th. And then the very last one is the Grand Garden Show from Proven Winners on Mackinac Island in Michigan. We went this past year, had a chance to go a couple times. It's amazing. We'll be there again. I think the dates of this one span over the weekend. That's late August and into September. But again, we will update our website with all the dates and times as we know them. Okay, so now let's get into the videos. Finally, sorry about all my rambling in the beginning. First video of the week was pressing flowers, and in this one I just showed you how I was pressing some flowers out of my garden and how I used them to make like a little framed piece of art for our house. Katie asked, are you planning on doing a dollar store tree again this year? I sincerely hope it's garden themed. I don't know if I'm going to. You guys will have to let me know in the comment section. The last 2 years I've done a dollar store Christmas tree challenge where I decorate an entire tree from stuff I found at the dollar store, and I was actually thinking of not doing it this year just because it's actually pretty easy. It's way easier than I thought, because the dollar stores have kind of upped their game in the Christmas like ornament realm. Department, whatever. And so it's not hard to go there and just deck a whole tree out with snowman ornaments or Santa or reindeer or whatever, angels. So if I do a dollar store tree, I think there needs to be a bigger challenge put on it. Like, I need to have a specific budget, or I need to have, like, you can't use any Christmas ornaments, you have to use other things that are in the store, or I have to keep it very like garden themed. You know, something like that. Let me know in the comment section if you want to see that challenge again and what kind of parameters I should put on it. Christina says, have you ever pressed dahlias or sunflowers? If so, what kind of results did you get and how did you do it? I actually have never pressed a dahlia or a sunflower because they're such thick, like three-dimensional flowers. I suppose somebody's probably done it before, so you could probably Google that and see what kind of results. Maybe if it was more of a single dahlia, you know, the types that don't have like tons of petals, it might be a little bit easier. They also have a lot of moisture in them, specifically the dahlias. Janelle says, are you able to reuse the pages of the press? Yes. With the one that did wet the paper, would you just let it dry? If the pages are reusable, then use it again? Yes. Last, would any flowers bleed on the paper? Yes. So 3 yeses on that. You can use the paper over and over again. I find, and I put some begonia, wax begonias in my press this last time. They're in there right now. And I think because when the petals drop on my concrete, they bleed color on my concrete. So I'm thinking they'll probably bleed color onto those papers, but once they're dry, I don't really worry about using them again. The open book with Miss Karen says, would it help if you sprayed the flowers with a preservative? You know, I never have on pressed flowers. I don't know if there's such a thing. There probably is. I know that I've seen a lot of people say to use hairspray on like more delicate dried, like my pink gomphrena wreath. People said to use hairspray to keep them all together, which I think is a really good idea. But I don't know about on pressed flowers. All right, so next video is storing caladiums. In this video, we just demonstrated how I dig up my caladium bulbs and how I'm gonna store them this year. Anne asked, how do you know soil temperatures? Because I did talk about that and how they don't like to be below a certain soil temp. I have a little thermometer that I use. I actually keep it in the soil in my raised beds in my garden most of the time, so I can kind of have a gauge on what the soil temp is. There are digital thermometers you can use, but they are very inexpensive to buy. So you can get one that's digital or not. Mine's not digital, and that really helps you gauge where your soil temp is. But like for storing caladiums, it was supposed to be like we were gonna get a really hard freeze. It got down to 21 the other night, and I knew I had to get those bulbs up like ASAP so that they didn't experience that. Katie says, would you do elephant ears the same way? You know what? I've never stored elephant ears, but I did notice that was a very common question in that comment section, and there were a lot of people who say that yes, you store elephant ears in the same way. So I'm thinking yes, you can store them the same way. Martha says, I want those galvanized pumpkins. Where did you get those? I think that she's referring to some galvanized pumpkins I have in the background of one of the shots. And one of them's like a tall squash, and then we've got a pumpkin. And I got those down at my parents' garden center one year. I've seen similar ones at Hobby Lobby. They're not exactly the same, but they're really close because I do not know the source for where my parents got those, unfortunately. Joanne says, I love the beautiful wallpaper in your room. Is it original to the house? It's not original to the house. That was put in by the previous owners who had this house decorated beautifully. It looked like a museum inside. They are really into historical colors, historical prints, antiques, and I mean every room you would walk into, it would just, everything like looked so cohesive and beautiful. It's a skill that I have not attained yet in my life. In fact, I've been in their new house for Christmas party, and I left that house feeling just so inspired. I love it when I go into places like that, because it seems few and far between where actually like I want to do something. I want to go decorate that night. Like I get home late in the night and I want to go do a project. But back to the wallpaper, it doesn't really go with the stuff that I currently have. So I don't know if I want to get rid of my stuff and get new stuff, or if I want to try to make it like a little bit more cohesive with our current style. So I don't know what's going to happen to it. For now, it'll just stay the way it is. Can you dig up the caladiums and repot them for use as a houseplant? So I am currently testing some caladiums as houseplants. I arranged them on top of a cupboard in our great room, kind of in a corner between two windows, and they were not getting enough light. I have since kind of groomed them up, and I put them up in my plant room underneath grow lights, and I'm just testing them out because I think that they'll do really good as a houseplant so long as they get a ton of bright light. And I know Proven Winners, who's coming out with this line of caladiums next year, is doing a lot of tests as well, and theirs have been really good. They have them sitting right in a window and they look beautiful. So I'm hopeful for mine that they stay nice looking so long as I give them enough light. So I think you definitely could dig them up and try them as a houseplant. I mean, I don't know, I don't think you're out anything just giving it a try. So next video was decorating our front porch, and in that video, which I can see it right now, I decorated with a lot of pinks and cooler tones, and it was kind of a fun one, and it was a little bit of a scaled down version of our other fall porch that I decorated, where I used a ton more stuff, and I did that one more traditional. So in this video, Lisa asked, where did you find a little vacuum? So it's a Dyson V10, and it comes apart, so you can use it as a little vacuum, like to do, I did all the siding up there because it catches so much dust. I also use it in our cars. It works great on stairs. I love that little vacuum so much. Like, I don't want to become a Dyson salesperson here, but I actually have two because I liked it so much. I needed one upstairs and one downstairs because I use them all the time. I'm constantly vacuuming our floors. But yeah, I've really enjoyed that vacuum as much as you can enjoy a vacuum. Shannon asks, have you ever considered putting all of your still photos into a coffee table book to sell to us groupies? We have considered it. We've talked about doing a calendar. We've actually been approached by several publishers to do a book. We just haven't been able to really dedicate the time that would be needed to create something really good. And I want to make sure that whatever we put together is like super high quality and something that I'm really proud of. So I think in the future it's something we would really like to do, but we'll just have to see. Jake asks, how about a video carving some pumpkins into a jack-o'-lantern? Seems right up your alley. That's totally up my alley, and we talk about it every single year about like, why didn't we put together a video of us carving, and somehow we always miss it. And so I don't know, we might get around to it this year, but we typically carve our pumpkins right before Halloween, and so by the time we would be able to film and edit it, it would be after Halloween. I don't know. So we'll just see what happens. We might just do one a little early. End of season harvest, I did a vlog where I just showed you guys harvesting stuff because we were supposed to get that 21-degree night. So I thought, well, it's now or never. I've got to harvest everything out of my garden so that it's safe. First comment and most popular comment from this video was, I love how Benjamin makes the sound for each strawberry. He is so cute. Look at all the thumbs up on that one comment. Super popular. He's totally stole the show. He usually does when he's in videos because he's so cute. But he loves to come out. He loves to be outside and just be involved in what you're doing. If you have pruners, he wants a pair of pruners. So I keep him shut, obviously, but he likes to like go right behind me, and he acts like he's doing what I'm doing. He wants to hold the rake. He wants to use the blower. I mean, he's so cute how involved he wants to be, and I hope it's always like that. The next two questions are kind of along the same line, so I'm going to read them both. Marissa asks, what do you use for bug control? She doesn't want to use a ton of pesticides. I'm right there with you. And then Rainbow 505 asked how we avoid or treat squash bugs. So the only thing I actually had to treat in my garden this year was squash bugs. I used a mixture of spinosad, which is Captain Jack's, and then Bioneem in the same container, and that held them at bay. I mean, I doused the plant down. It was only one plant, well, two plants got squash bugs this year. One of them was my zucchini, and I got so fed up with that zucchini plant that I cut it back to a nub. And I just thought, well, I've already had a ton of zucchini. I don't really need any more. So if it doesn't produce anymore, it's totally fine, but we'll just experiment here, because I was killing them all, and I was trying to find all the eggs, and they were so loaded that I just thought it's better off just to get rid of this plant. So it came back back beautifully. It had a few zucchini on it, and it never got squash bugs again, and never had to use a spray. On the other one, it was a butternut squash plant, and it was a pretty good sized vine. It had a lot of fruit on it, and so I thought, well, I'm gonna have to spray this one. Thankfully, it was away from my actual vegetable garden space. It was over on the west side, and I just doused that plant with that mixture of spinosad and bioneem, and it worked really nicely, keeping them at bay. So the only other thing that I noticed in my garden this year were aphids, but they were only on my calendulas, so I just left them alone. I just thought, well, calendulas maybe act the same as nasturtiums, and nasturtiums are a host plant for aphids. So I thought if all the aphids just want to congregate on that one plant, awesome. They're not bugging anything else in my garden. I'm not harvesting any food off the calendulas, so this is kind of a win-win here. It's a great companion plant, I guess. So I just left the plant there and let the aphids feast. We did start working with bonide though this year, and I really like that their labels are indicative of what's in the bottle. So if you find anything with a brown swoosh in the corner, that means it's a natural product for organic gardening, and if it's a purple swoosh, it's synthetic. And I don't keep or draw a hard line on either, because just because it's synthetic doesn't mean it's horrible, and just because it's organic doesn't mean it's good. So I think that everybody needs to do their research and decide what is the best approach for themselves. But if you're wanting to lean more toward the organic or natural side of things, which I always try to do first, then look for that brown swoosh. Elsa says, what do you do with green tomatoes? So I harvest most of my green tomatoes and then just let them ripen inside on the counter. You can put them in a paper bag, and that works most of the time. I know a lot of you guys say to make fried green tomatoes. I have never tried a fried green tomato in my life, and I should. I've got green tomatoes sitting in there right now. So if any of you guys have a great recipe, link it to me in the comments below. Next video was planting ornamental grasses. So we went to the church and finished up a little project we were working on where I planted 3 ornamental grasses and some bulbs. So Terry asks, why don't you add any water to the holes before planting your plants? I used to do that all of the time, like all the time for everything I planted. And then I've learned more and more as I've gotten to know people in the growing industry. And a lot of people just don't do it. They don't say it's necessary. I still do it for big stuff. Like when we planted the big thundercloud plum, Aaron and I did, like late this summer, we did fill the hole with a little water just to introduce that huge root ball to that nice moist area. But for like little stuff I'm planting around the garden, I plant it and then I just water it in really well. And a lot of times we don't show that in the video, but it's a step that I always do. So right after we wrapped everything up, I get my hose out and I water everything in super well. Christina says, I didn't see any weed block cloth. How do you keep the weeds out of the flower bed at the church? We hand pull, and that's what we do here. I only have weed fabric underneath our boxwood hedge and then our arborvitae hedge because we have bindweed really bad. And if bindweed isn't suppressed, then you can't pull it. It doesn't pull. It spreads underneath the ground really deep. So every time you pull it out, it just kind of angers it and makes it bigger. So unless we suppress it, I mean, the only other option is to spray it. And there's no way I could spray bindweed out of a arborvitae or boxwood hedge without killing the good plants. So that's the only place that I usually use it. We hand pull all the other times. Kelsey says, I need to get some new bulbs before it's too late. When would you say is the cutoff date for planting bulbs? I don't really think there is a cutoff date as long as you can dig a hole. I remember my parents one year bringing home leftover bulbs that were just left at the garden center that didn't sell. They brought them all home, and then they were using an iron bar down in our orchard, and they were chipping up huge pieces of like frozen ground to get down to the softer stuff, and then they just scattered the bulbs out and put the frozen disc right back on top, and all those bulbs came up. I think that's a little bit riskier than if you can get them in when the ground is completely workable. Like right now, I could go out and dig a hole anywhere. It's cold, but it's not frozen yet. And then for those of you who live in milder climates, I know that you guys have to create like the cold vernalization period to give the bulb energy to bloom by putting it in the refrigerator or like a root cellar or somewhere that gets cold enough, because they have to have, like, I think tulips need like 16 weeks of cold temperatures in order to bloom properly. Daffodils need about the same. I think hyacinths need 10 to 12 weeks. I might be wrong on these. Crocus need 8 to 10 weeks. But anyway, each specific bulb that blooms in the spring needs a specific amount of weeks of cold temperatures. And if you live in too mild of a climate, they'll just be annuals for you. So you create that cold climate inside, you plant them out, they bloom, and then you either have to dig them up and do the same thing again, or they just will fizzle out. Joanne asked what type of shovel I used. I use a Fiskars. It's like a half-size shovel, but it expands. So it's got a nice size shovel blade, Spade, is that what it's called?
I think so.
Shovel blade. Anyway, it's a nice size because it kind of matches my 1 gallon sized cans. And then the handle, you can either keep it half size or you can expand it out and make it longer. We'll link it down below if anybody's interested in looking at it. And the last video was harvesting and saving seeds. And there was one thing in particular I actually didn't even think about mentioning, and I should have. And so the first comment, and a lot of comments, were what about like cross-pollination and hybrid seeds? So there are basically 2 kinds of seed that you want to watch for: open pollinated and hybrid. So an open pollinated seed means that if you gather seed from that plant, like for example the zinnias, sunflowers, the rudbeckia, the cosmos, all of those seeds that I gathered from were open pollinated, meaning if I plant the seed I gathered from those this year, I will get the same exact variety next year. However, the snapdragons that I gathered from are hybrids. That means that that plant was created by crossing 2 parent plants to create that variety. So if you gather seed from that one, you'll probably get one of the parent plants, not the variety you planted. But I wanted to do it just to experiment and see what I get. I mean, because snapdragons are so prolific and they seed like they create so much seed. I thought it would be fun. I have ordered that one's called Potomac White. I ordered those seeds, so I have that specific variety to plant again next year. And I'm gonna seed some of the seeds I gathered and just see what I get. But that's what happens when you gather from a hybrid. You never really know what you're gonna get the next year. So just be mindful of that. Carol said, I've never planted anything from seeds, so how exactly do you place the seeds in the soil? Like one tiny seed per hole or several seeds together? It depends on what you're planting and how you're planting it. Like when I planted my Rudbeckia and snapdragons inside, I usually put 2 or 3 seeds per hole, and then I thin out the extras. And that way you make sure to get a plant in every single one of the cells. When I'm outside, I try to do about the same thing. You know, if I'm planting like peas, for example, I'll put 2 pea seeds in one hole. And then I'll go down 4 inches or 6 inches and plant 2 more pea seeds, and then I'll just thin out the extra one later. And that way I make sure to have a really good stand. And then as far as depth and everything, it's different for every single seed you'll plant. I think the rule of thumb is like twice the depth of the width of the seed. So if you're planting like a snapdragon seed, you barely have to, I don't even know that I covered mine. I think I covered mine with vermiculite. I didn't even put soil over the top. Yeah, but it'll say on the back of the seed package. And also you can look on a back of seed packages and it'll tell you whether or not direct sowing outside is recommended or if inside sowing is recommended. So, you know, check out the seed packet and you can find that information. And the very last question for today's video is from Sweet Stuff, and it's, does anyone know what the gorgeous blue purple flowers are behind me when I was cutting the cosmos? And that is a mixture of Blushing Princess, Lobularia, or Sweet Alyssum, and then a trailing rose-veined Supertunia. Those planters have done amazing by the chicken coop this year. Super happy with that mix. So that's it, you guys. Those are some of the questions from last week's videos. And again, I just encourage you to leave questions if you have them. Like other people's questions if you want to know the same thing, and that way it'll bump them to the top. I'm pulling most all of these from YouTube, so make sure you're leaving your comment or your question on YouTube so that we see them. We do try to read every single comment that comes on every single social media platform, but for these videos, I think we're pulling mainly from YouTube. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic week.